This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. We're Gary Financial. We're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement, as we always do on the Financial Beat. And my name's Ron Stutz. Always happy to hang out with Logan. Logan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ron. How are you doing?
Oh, not bad at all. And I want to hear all about what you did on Thanksgiving in just a moment here. But we had the holiday, of course, just a few days ago. And first of all, let me tell everybody how they should get in touch with you if they'd like to have a conversation about their financial situation. It's 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN, your number to call to get in touch with Gary Financial and get a discovery meeting going with the one and only Logan Sadler. Logan, did you have a good Thanksgiving? And number two, did you eat too much?
Yeah, that's a good course there for a setup for Thanksgiving, right? I definitely had a good time. I got to enjoy the family and on my side and on my wife's side, and then got to eat two turkey dinners, which I some people would complain about, but I think it's great. And I had a wonderful time. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's my favorite holiday of the year because you don't have to buy presents for anybody. You just enjoy food, spending time with your family, the people you care about, and maybe even watch a little football in there too. So
yeah.
We got lots of things to talk about today. Hope everybody out there had a great holiday. And we'll open up today with a quote from Sandra Day O'Connor. And this one makes a lot of sense for some folks. She said, "I need to retire from retirement." What do you think she meant by that?
Yeah, maybe she falls into some of those categories as some of our clients where they retire and probably envision this, relaxing time period. However, they might be even more busy than they were when they were working, right? I have clients that are, in charities or involved with their kids or grandkids, or might even just have a busy doctor's schedule, right? I mean, I don't know, whatever's going on. They might have a very busy schedule. And believe it or not, some people are just even more busy in retirement, even though it's things they might want to do. But some of them appear rather exhausted sometimes when I get to chat with them at our meetings.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet that is the case with you and a lot of your clients. You're trying to set an appointment with them to get together and, assess what's going on. And they say, well, I've got a doctor's appointment that day. And you may be trying to get an afternoon appointment.
Yep.
It's like, your whole life kind of fills up. So, that one's kind of easy to understand, I think. But, some folks out there have income gaps. And let's explore the many different types of income gaps that you might encounter during retirement. First of all, we always say retirement really is permanent unemployment.
Yeah.
And so that's going to result in a paycheck gap because that regular paycheck that you get every month or every 2 weeks or whatever is going to go away. And, the key is, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very likely, right, that when you retire, most people, they retire and they end up not having much of a paycheck coming. Most of them, when you look at what a paycheck would be, is obviously working and showing up and getting wages. And when you look about retirement, what are some paychecks I think people think about, right? They think about Social Security and they maybe think about a pension. I did this article the other day where it was from an institution, so can't verify this exact information, but it was saying something like only maybe 39% of the baby boomer generation has a pension, and it's even less for the generations after that, right? So when you look at a lot of what's going on now is when you retire, you don't have a paycheck anymore, right? You got your 401k, you have a deferred comp plan, a 403b, or one of those types of investments that you have to pair with your Social Security to create your paycheck. So I think for a lot of people out there, when you look at your retirement plan, I don't know about you, Ron, but most people, when they think of retirement, they think of doing things. And the process of that typically requires money to come in monthly to be able to go afford to do things or pay the mortgage or whatever it is. So creating that paycheck gap, I say, is one of the more important things. And that's where we talk a lot about in our retirement plans is how to produce that next paycheck and to make sure it's going to be there for you every month.
Okay, well, let's talk about you mentioned Social Security a moment ago. And what about the Social Security Medicare gap? I mean, that applies to people who retire before the age of 62, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the industry research out there shows, somewhere between, 65 and 66 is like an ideal time to retire for a lot of people, right? And it's funny because a lot of clients will come in or they'll call in from the radio show and we'll go over their financial plan and they say, why do people wait so long to retire, right? Why do they work till 65 or 66 or whatever the age is? And I say a lot of the time it's because at 62 you can get Social Security. However, health care tends to be one of the more expensive costs, and you don't get Medicare for most people till 65, right? So that's why a lot of people end up delaying. And as you guys have known, if you've listened to the show a lot, me and Ron talk about Social Security all of the time, and you could also head over to the YouTube channel and check out a lot of the videos we've done there. But a lot of you know that the pay amount, the income amount, every year you wait, it goes up pretty drastically by the time you hit, 65, 66, somewhere in that range. And so those are the two reasons where you'll see a lot of people wait till 65 to retire to just have that higher Social Security and knowing that you have Medicare to now help cover some of those medical costs. So it just financially makes sense for some people. However, a lot of you listen to the show might be in a better situation or might have done a little more planning and might be able to go out a little bit earlier. It just really depends on your situation.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Rigeri Financial. I'll tell you how you can get in touch with Logan in just a few moments here, but we're talking about income gaps. There are different kinds, and there may be an inflation gap. We all know what an inflationary time we're living through right now, and we really don't know exactly what it's going to be like in the future. How do you handle that, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at inflation gaps, I think you're basically just talking about the last few years, right? Specifically where we've seen high amounts of inflation, and we've seen some pretty, record-breaking or monumental moves on Social Security and some of the COLAs out there, cost of living adjustments. However, I think many of us will agree that is not going to be a sufficient amount for you guys to continue to live off of based off the inflation numbers. One thing I know about inflation is what I tell all of our clients is when we go over a 10, 15, 20, or maybe even a 30-year plus retirement plan, I know that inflation is going to have some impact, right? Do I think it's always going to be 6% or 8%? No, I don't think it's always going to be those numbers. But historically, we do know there will be some inflation, right? It might be 2%, it might be 4%. So I think when you're looking at your retirement plan, so many people say, well, Logan, if I can get $5,000 a month, I could retire and be fine. Or if I can get $10,000 a month, whatever the amount is, I think it's really important to understand that that amount is going to have some adjustments for inflation. Most of the time, your Social Security would have a COLA on it, which is the cost of living adjustment. That does get adjusted every few years or based off inflation numbers. Some pensions might. Other than that, most people don't really have much of an inflation plan. So I think when you're looking at, maybe if you're looking at annuity payments or things like that, looking at if they have a cost of living adjustment or some type of inflation protection, or if you're having money in the market and things like that, making sure that you're really layering in different levels of protection to where hey, you know what, if I need to increase my wages next year or the following year or whenever, I'll be able to do so. Because one thing is for sure, inflation is always around at some extent, and you're always going to probably need more in the future than you do today.
And we have talked about so many times about how many of us are going to need long-term care at some point in our lives. I think it's like 70% of us. There is most certainly for a lot of folks going to be a long-term care gap. How do you address that?
Yeah, I think when you look at a lot of the retirement plans out there, they work absolutely perfect. If you say, hey, I retired at 65 and I pass away at 85, I'm going to be perfectly fine throughout that time frame, and I'll just pass away. Gosh forbid something happens and I pass away peacefully and everything goes, then I'll be fine. The question always is, though, what happens if that's not how it works, right? What happens if you end up going into a nursing home or a care facility and you might be there for anywhere from 1 to 3 years long at, $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 a month? How is that going to affect the overall retirement plan for you, for your spouse, or maybe even your legacy plan? And that's where you find out a lot of people don't really have that long-term care protection built into their plan, and that's where we call it that gap, like you're talking about, Ron. There's not enough money there or coverage there to be able to sustain long-term care.
Yeah.
So I think, and we've had that conversation quite a bit on the show, and I think a lot of listeners out there really resonate with that, because a lot of times we don't want our kids taking care of us, or we don't want to have a family member have to take care of us. We want to be able to, put ourselves in a situation where we can take care of ourselves. And the fact of the matter is that's going to be really expensive, whether we stay at home, whether we go to a facility, whatever the whatever the metrics of that work out to be. Understanding that long-term care is a pretty high chance for some of us to go to, and understanding if it did happen, how is that going to impact the overall financial plan, and really make sure you're putting measurements in your plan to cover that.
I want to ask you about one more kind of gap here, and that is, unfortunately, a widow's gap, and that is something that a lot of folks have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at a typical retirement plan, I always like to use Joe and Sue, right, for an example. Let's say Joe and Sue both have retirement, income and things like that. They're retired. Let's say they have a Social Security of, let's say Joe's is $3,000 a month, and let's say Sue's is $2,000 a month, right? They have maybe some RMDs or some investment income or rental income, whatever you want to talk about. The fact of the matter is, if something happened to, let's say Sue, if something happened to Sue, she's going to lose he'll lose his $2,000 a month that she was receiving of her Social Security, right? So right off the bat, they lost $2,000 a month just off Social Security. That's not including any other pension income or anything else that you factor in. So I think having income replacements in line for down the road is super important, because I talk to a lot of widows, and a lot of our clients have, unfortunately been widowed. And it's one of those scenarios where there's always going to be some type of income that probably needs to be made up, and making sure we have a plan for that, I think, is super important. There's, life insurance, making sure you have extra savings or backup money, reserve money, things like that, to where there's extra money there to be used for income if need be, because, the problem is we are not sure when that time will come, and we want to make sure we have a plan for it.
There are lots of different income gaps, and if you see yourself in any of those situations, I would suggest you call Logan Sadler's office and arrange to have a conversation about your financial situation. Logan, how did this discovery meeting typically go when you get together and talk with somebody for the very first time?
Yeah, at our discovery meeting, it's really one of our that's our first meeting, really, where we get to meet you guys and you get to meet us. And I think it's really a good introduction to go over, what our firm does and what we have to offer here. But really, it's a great time for us to understand your situation. And really, we ask a lot of questions about you and your family. Where do you want to retire? What do you envision retirement looking like? How much do you have saved for retirement? How is it broken down? What type of concerns do you have? All those types of questions will be poured in. And really what it's all meant to do is just to give you a great introduction into our firm, and really show you some of the value that our firm has to offer to you, and really show you how we might be able to make a huge difference in your overall retirement plan by helping you put together a comprehensive retirement plan. Not just here's some investments or here's this strategy, but really putting all of those pieces together for a retirement plan that a lot of you have questions on. So give us a call if you're near or approaching retirement and you're looking to really get a better understanding of your current financial situation and get a plan together. Give us a call.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Even if you're already retired, you might need a little tweaking with your plan. And my goodness, if you don't have a plan, that is all the more reason to get in touch with Logan. 888-823-PLAN. On this radio show, Logan does a lot of talking. That's the way it's supposed to go, because we're all here to learn from him. But when you come in and have a conversation with him, he's going to do a lot of listening, because he's going to ask you a lot of questions about your situation, about your life, about your hopes and dreams when it comes to your retirement lifestyle. That's necessary because he wants to get to know you and then put together a plan that is designed specifically for you and no one else. One more time, that number to call Regari Financial is 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz. He's Logan Sadler. We'll be right back with more in just a moment.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. 2 convenient offices for Regary, one in Hammond and one in Redlands. Wherever you are in Southern California, we appreciate your listening today. Remember that Logan works with 3 different generations of client families, and many of those clients have been around for a long time, more than a quarter of a century with Regary. And Logan Sadler can provide a comprehensive approach. He has also an outstanding team of folks who are already willing and able to help you get to and through retirement. And that's what it's all about. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan. We call it a discovery meeting. 888-823-7526. But use the word PLAN. It's easy to remember those 4 digits at the end there. 888-823-PLAN. Hey, Logan, I got kind of an off-the-wall question here for you. We always have these getting-to-know-you questions, and we talk about how you want to get to know your clients or your potential clients, but they also want to get to know you as well. How good of a driver are you?
Well, I think this is one of those questions I feel like we all kind of, I don't want to say lie because that's a bad word, but I think we all exaggerate of how good of a driver we are, right?
That's probably true, yeah.
I have a family member, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but they swear they're a good driver when they're absolutely awful. Whenever there's a chance for someone to drive, I beg and plead that I could drive so she doesn't have to. But no, I would say I'd say I'm an average driver. I think I don't go too fast, don't go too slow, and I always get from A to B. I'm not a weaver. I don't get in and out of lanes too much, but I definitely get us there when we need to be there. So I would say I'd say a little above average.
A lot of it is common sense, really. And
it is, right? And it's just, you don't treat other people how you wouldn't want to be treated, right? So you don't want to be cutting people off or doing that, and try to be safe.
There are some people who are just the opposite, man. I'm telling you, I hate it when I get on the interstate and it happens. And,
oh, man.
People are crazy. Well, hey, let's talk about retirement planning for high net worth individuals. Mm-hmm. We've talked so many times before. A lot of people say that you have to be rich or wealthy in order to need a financial advisor. That is not true. That is not the case at all. But there are some individuals that you help who have a high net worth. And so let's take a look at that. And we're talking about those who have accumulated significant wealth and face unique challenges and opportunities when planning for retirement. Unlike the average person, their financial considerations go beyond the basics. We'll explore the distinct strategies and factors here that come into play when putting together a comfortable and prosperous retirement lifestyle. First of all, Logan, what is your definition of a high net worth individual, and what kind of special problems do they have?
Yeah, I mean, high net worth, it could be, classified many different ways, but I would say typically anybody over $1 million would be considered a higher net worth. Mm-hmm. We have some clients that are well over millions of dollars, and there's, different complexities, I would say. When you see high net worth, it doesn't necessarily mean, somebody that's extremely well off or extremely rich. What it means is somebody that probably has accumulated some assets, and their situation might just be a little bit more tricky as far as how to navigate some of those things that come up with some of those, some of those upcoming obstacles.
Could get a little complicated. In other words, a little complex. That's for sure. And some of the problems revolve around taxes. Mm-hmm. And the more net worth you have, I guess, the more chance there is for you to end up paying more taxes than you want to. Or have to.
You're 100% right there. I think a lot more. And again, like you said earlier, Ron, I think everybody can see a lot of value with working with a financial advisor, whether you have $50,000 or whether you have $20 million. I think there's a lot of value that you can get with working with a financial advisor, whether it's savings goals, budgeting, debt consolidation, things like those are very valuable topics, as well as asset management and things like that are really important. But when you dive more into the higher net worth space, it's funny because a lot of our higher net worth clients that we have, they have $1 million, $5 million, somewhere, anywhere in that range. A lot more of it is very complex as far as how to really, mix together a lot of those strategies. Like you said, there's just access to more strategies out there when you have higher net worth. There's, structured notes, private equity, real estate, many different other sectors that sometimes you just need a little bit more money to get into, that you could have access to. But, outside of that, Ron, you mentioned it right off the top. taxes, right? When you talk to higher net worth clients, one of their biggest concerns and one of their biggest fears is I'm paying way too much in taxes, and I'm going to probably continue to pay a lot in taxes. How can I navigate through this situation? And there's a lot of different issues and things like that can come up with a financial plan when it comes to taxes. You look at capital gains rates, right? Somebody that has a high brokerage account and things like that with $1 million in it or $2 million in it, if you're not managing that correctly, you could be paying a lot of unjustified tax. Well, there's different little tax strategies you could be doing throughout the years to really help that overall situation now and then probably in the future. And then you throw in maybe estate taxes and other things like that will become a real concern. I would say a lot of those higher net worth clients of ours especially are a lot more focused on tax planning and really making sure that we're making every dollar count now and for the long term.
If you are a high net worth individual, chances are that there are certain liabilities that you face. Some people say you might have a target on your back, and what is entailed in keeping that from hurting your cause?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different liabilities and things like that out there. Some of our higher net worth clients might have higher mortgages or higher they need a lot more income. They might have a higher net worth lifestyle, right? So, there's a lot of different liabilities and things like that will come throughout the years with that. And there's a lot of different ways that you want to make sure you're adequately insured, right? So making sure you have the proper life insurance, make sure you have the proper home coverage, all those different types of insurance things that really could, in my opinion, Ron, make a drastic impact in your retirement. So I think not only in your retirement, but throughout your working years too. But I think it's funny though, Ron, because the higher net worth client, like you were saying, some clients go, man, I just wish I had $1 million, right? And for some of our clients, $1 million is a lot of money, and it's going to be able to really generate the lifestyle they want. However, I have some clients where they're used to making a ton of money throughout the years, so they might need even more than $1 million, right? So I think it's really all about your situation, and we have a very good specialty in handling a lot of clients that have high net worth and really being able to navigate through some of those tricky situations that I think a lot of other advisors and other teams out there probably just don't do.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. The number to call for Regary Financial, 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. We'll get back to that in just a few minutes here, but we're talking about planning for high net worth individuals, and there are some basic myths circulating out there for folks who do have a lot of money, a lot of assets, and some people think that once your net worth hits a certain level, there's no need to worry about creating an income in retirement, and that's just a really dumb thought right there.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes there's some blind thoughts out there, right? And I think there's a lot of people out there that have so much net worth, they don't really worry about sustainable withdrawal rates. And the problem with that is, Dave Ramsey's had a lot of questionable opinions on this lately, but I think it's really, understanding how much money you have and how much you can withdraw at a safe rate is very, very important because, if you have $1 million and you think you can withdraw 8% a year, because you have $1 million, you could take $80,000 a year. Well, you probably can, but for how long, right? That's the big question there. And some of our clients that have $3, $4, $5 million plus, you can generate some pretty good income and some dividends and things like that from it. But having a sustainable withdrawal rate and still having an income plan. An income plan's not just, hey, I'm going to wake up and sell this stock today for some income. That's not an income plan, right? I think understanding all of your income sources. Maybe you need more guaranteed income sources. Maybe you need more dividends or more real estate or whatever it is. But understanding your income plan, I think, is very important and not just trying to assume a withdrawal rate without really knowing how that's going to work.
Some high net worth individuals may think, hey, there's plenty of money to go around. I don't even need to worry about estate planning. That's not a very smart way to operate either.
No, I'm working with a few different clients right now that are well in this high net worth category, and it's funny because both of them had similar thoughts. And once you really start breaking down the numbers, if you had one bad financial crisis at the wrong time and took a little bit too much money out, and then maybe lost a spouse at the wrong time, it's like, wow, this really, really good situation got tight quick. Right? It's not that it meant it didn't work. It just meant it really drastically changed from leaving behind $2, $3, $4, $5 million to, well, we probably will leave behind $800,000, right? And that's just going off a worst case scenario. So I think just kind of understanding what your goal is, but also understanding some of the obstacles that could really change things very, very fast, right? Markets change, tax laws change, investments change, and your situation changes. So I think understanding the importance of your estate plan and your overall investment plan is crucial, whether you have $100,000 or whether you have, $50 million.
I know that you run the gamut as far as clients are concerned and their net worth. There are some folks that you mentioned earlier may have 50,000, and you can help them certainly. And then others are well into the millions, and you work with them quite comfortably as well. You help all those folks. So let me just say that if you're listening to the show today, no matter where you fall along those guidelines, then call Logan Sadler and get a conversation going. Logan, I know that you have taken a great deal of pride over the years in helping folks no matter what their situation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that need help, right? And like you said, Ron, they might have $200,000, they might have 20 million, right? And I think either way, there's a lot of value that our firm can bring to the table. And I work with a lot of people out there that are really approaching retirement and helping to come up with a lot of these strategies, right? I think everybody out there, whether you're ultra high net worth or not, I think understanding the 5 pillars of your retirement plan is very similar for each of you, right? There's obviously a little bit different complexities you might want to throw in there, but understanding what your income plan looks like. That's the first thing. Every good retirement plan starts with an income plan. Then understanding your investment planning. How much risk are you taking? Are you going to be able to adjust for inflation? Is there a lot of those things that are going to be in there to make sure you have that comprehensive investment plan that meets your expectations, but also is comfortable with your risk tolerance? Then number 3, Ron, right? We talk about it, tax planning. Understanding how important your current tax situation is, but also not forgetting to plan for how important that tax situation is going to be in the future. Legacy, long-term care planning, all of those things are the two last pillars there to fill out the 5. And I think each and every one of those is extremely important to making sure that you have a successful retirement. So if you're out there and whether, like I said, you have 200,000 or you have 5 million, I think definitely by meeting with us, you could see some of the value we could bring just by doing things like this on the radio show and talking in, not even in specifics. I think some of you out there can see the value. But once you come into the office or jump on a Zoom call, I really think by going through our team's process, we have a 3-meeting process before we ever bring on a client. And a lot of that's because we really want to get to know and understand your situation. And then the next few meetings is just us showing some of the value and planning strategies that probably can make a huge difference in your retirement.
You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler that is cost-free and obligation-free as well. In other words, no strings attached here. No money's going to change hands. Why not call 888-823-PLAN? 888-823-PLAN, your number to call. That is the number for Regary Financial. 2 convenient offices in Southern California, Redlands and Hemet. And you will be talking to Logan Sadler, same person you hear on this show. He's not going to pass you off on anybody else. They have a great team of folks at Regary who are ready, willing, and able to help you, but you have to reach out first and make that initial contact. 888-823-PLAN. We'll have more coming up in just a moment on today's edition of the Financial Beat. Got a lot of interesting topics ahead of us on today's show. We thank you for being here, and we'll be right back.
Does it feel like you and your financial advisor aren't on the same page?
Not quite my tempo. Were you rushing or were you dragging?
Logan and the team at Regary Financial can stay in tune and on rhythm with you. Keep listening to the Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is here. Go tell everybody you know, because he's going to say a lot of important things during the rest of today's show. I can feel it right now. I just know he's going to say something that's going to blow me out of the water here in a few minutes. So stick around with me and find out what it is. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. And I really do learn every single week from talking to Logan, and you do too, I'm sure. That's why you listen to the show. A lot of folks have been listening to this show for quite some time. Some folks may be just joining us for the first time today, and if so, we welcome you as well. If you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, it's called a discovery meeting, and you can do a Zoom call if you like. You can also come into one of the convenient offices in Redlands or Hemet. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to set it up. 888-823-PLAN. It's all about putting together a retirement income plan, and there's a lot of planning involved, a lot of strategy. Logan Sadler can help you with all this. And remember, if you're trying to do it all yourself, this is presumably the first time you've been trying to do it. Logan's done it many, many times, so he's helped a lot of folks out there. One other way that you can get in touch with Logan Sadler is by listening to his podcasts, and also he's on YouTube all the time. I'm always seeing your stuff on YouTube, Logan. Tell us about those and how folks can get to them.
Yeah, you can head over to the YouTube channel and type in The Financial Beat, and it'll bring you right there to the YouTube channel where we upload a video each week, and also the podcast version of these episodes are uploaded there as well. But on the YouTube channel, we do a lot of good, short educational content. They may be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes long, and a lot of them are a lot of the questions that a lot of you ask on the show about, when should I take Social Security, or how does my risk tolerance work in retirement, or what is an income plan, right? A lot of those different topics you can find out there on the YouTube channel. So type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and I'll bring you there to our channel. Go ahead and click subscribe and like the video, and hey, let us know some of the other videos you might want us to do in the future.
Yeah, and they're really good, really well put together, and appreciate your putting those together, Logan. Let's talk about the folks who might be ready for an adventure today. Maybe if you're thinking of retirement planning as climbing a mountain, it might make it a little fun to have this conversation here. It's not just about the climb up. It's about preparing wisely, tackling the ups and downs, and even planning your way back down. We're talking about setting milestones, dealing with surprises in the market, making sure your hard-earned savings last through your entire retirement journey. Nobody wants to run out of money. Join us as we gear up now with some smart strategies and insights, making sure you reach the top and enjoy the view. Okay, let's talk about preparing for the climb. Logan, what does that entail?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at your retirement plan, I always like to say, when you're looking at how the construction of that plan comes together, preparing is really the climb to getting to where you're ready to plan, right? So gathering up your gear, right? Getting everything ready for anybody that's ever been on a hike, or let's just say even a good walk, right? Understanding your terrain, being a little bit physically and maybe even mentally prepared for what you're about to go through is very, very similar to a lot of us in our 20s, 30s, and 40s that are, like I said, gathering up gear. What is that? That's your savings. That's your investments. Understanding your terrain. Well, that's your financial landscape, right? Being able to be physically and mentally prepared, that means being maybe able to understand some financial literacy, or maybe even understanding some of the financial aspects that are going to be able to contribute to this next few years. And I always explain the mountain is a very good analogy of retirement planning, because going up the mountain is somebody that is really gearing up, gathering their assets, putting away money, buying a home, all those things that we do in our younger years that are preparing us for down the road. And going up the mountain is no easy task, but also there's a lot of different considerations and decisions that need to be made along that journey.
Yeah, and then there is the ascent. It's when you're actually going up the mountain. What is that compared to when we're talking about preparing for your own retirement?
Yeah, the climb, that represents your working years, right? Where you're actively saving, you're investing for retirement. And I think that's really what a lot of us in the industry call the accumulation phase, right? That's really where you're gathering a lot of these assets and building that situation up and really trying to encourage and really enhance your current financial situation. I think there's strategy and planning and risk and all that are very, very essential to where you're at. I always say some clients get to where they want to go by accident, right? Some of them wake up and go, man, I put away a lot of money. I'll be able to retire when I want. Things are going to be good. However, some people don't do any planning whatsoever, and guess what? You don't end up having a very good retirement plan, right? Because you never got started. So I think there's a lot that needs to go into it during that ascent phase, where you want to look at what is your strategy. If you're 30 years old or 40 years old, how long do you want to work? When do you want to retire? What do you want your retirement to look like? What is your financial aspect going to look like now and maybe down the road, and really kind of gear up for what's coming?
Well, I'm not a mountain climber, obviously, never have been. But I understand that when people climb mountains, they establish base camps along the way, sort of like a pit stop when you're, in an automobile race. And what would be the, they stop there to rest and kind of get their act together and acclimate themselves to the situation. Mm-hmm. What would that compare to along the way in your preparation for retirement?
Yeah, and honestly, my job is to be full disclosure. I've never went on any type of a hike that I've had to have a base camp. Okay, so I'm throwing out that full disclosure here. I've never went on a long enough of a hike where I had to set up a base camp. But from the movies, right? What I've seen as far as the base camp goes is that's a milestone, right? Where people reach a certain spot where they're going to be able to set up their camp, maybe for the night, for the day, or whatever it is. And I think a lot of that in the financial world is examples of, people in their financial world where maybe they're paying off a mortgage, right? Maybe they paid for their child's education, maxing out their Roth and their 401ks. They're doing their catch-up provisions. They're really not just planning or not just on the start, but they really made some really big strides. And those are really big opportunities where they're really being able to adjust and enhance their financial situation at the current moment.
Of course, if you're going to climb a mountain, just like doing anything outside, you have to be prepared for, the weather to be a lot different than you thought, and the weather is going to change along the way. How do you compare that to what's happening in your life as you get ready for retirement?
Oh, yeah, that's super easy, I think, right? Where a lot of us, with the changing weather, has anybody ever turned on the news or read a financial article or read a financial outlook statement or something like that, and it's always the same? I don't think that's ever happened in my life, Ron. Has that ever happened to you?
It changes every single day.
It changes every single day, just like the weather, right? Sometimes the weather forecast is right, sometimes it's wrong, but I guarantee you it's probably a little different every day, and that is just like your financial plan. It is going to change. There is different market volatilities. There's different obstacles and hurdles and different things that you're going to have to adjust throughout your retirement plan, just like your hike.
Sometimes I've often joked about, how the weather changes all the time and it doesn't turn out the way we think it's going to. Sometimes I think the meteorologists, go to the back door of the TV station and flip a coin and say, hey, if it's heads, it's going to rain. If it's tails, it's not.
I agree.
Meteorology is not an exact science for sure. And we've learned a lot, but it's not perfect. Let's talk about the summit, reaching the top of the mountain. What would be the top of the mountain when it comes to retirement planning?
Yeah, so earlier I talked about there mainly is three phases of the retirement plan, right? You have the accumulation phase, which we talked about earlier, which is the ascent, and then all these little base camp and little pit stops along the way. But I think when you're looking at what the summit is, that would be what's called the preservation stage, right? So that's where you've basically have kind of reached the top, right? You're just about there. Now, typically, you're probably about to enter into retirement. Maybe you're 3 years out or 5 years out, but you're very close. And I think one of the biggest things is there's a lot of danger in these next two phases. I always say a lot of people don't get hurt going up the mountain, right? Yeah. A lot of times it's coming down the mountain, which that summit phase, you're right about to come down the mountain. So not spending too much money, not buying any big home purchases, not tying yourself down with big debt, but also making sure your financial situation, your investments are in line, your current tax structure, you're really, really starting to think about this next journey that you're about to take. That's called coming down the mountain, right?
Yeah, and you worked so hard, to get to the top and everything, and now you're about to come down, and you have to make sure that you descend safely. I understand a lot of people really get hurt or lose their lives when they're coming down rather than going up the mountain, and I guess that's true in retirement as well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people accumulate lots of wealth and put away a big amount of money for whatever their wages were and things like that, and put themselves in an awesome situation, and then completely blow it up in a very quick matter of time, right? And like you said, Ron, it is very dangerous coming down the mountain because you see a mindset shift, right? A lot of clients are not used to retirement. You're used to working, you're used to putting away money, you have overtime, you're raising kids, you got all these things going on. Now all of a sudden you got this pot of money and you're supposed to figure out, how Medicare works, how taxes are going to work, how your investments should work, how do you create income, right? All these little things that are going to start going through the mountain. But I think the very important part that requires caution in the planning is the descent. So a lot of you approaching retirement, you want to understand that you understand what careful withdrawal strategies are out there. Managing your healthcare costs is a huge one. Ensuring that your savings are going to last, right? There's these huge factors that are going to come in. So a lot of you guys that have done well and put yourselves in a good situation throughout your climb there, as you're approaching that preservation stage to start coming down the hill, I definitely think by calling our firm and coming in and sitting with us, we could show you a lot of really good, successful strategies that we've used on hundreds of clients, probably just like yourself, help navigate this tricky thing we call retirement and making sure that you're coming down the mountain and not just getting down the mountain, but also getting down it successfully. So give us a call. I'd love to spend an hour with you. That's what our discovery meeting is. You get to come in, sit down in one of our offices or jump on a Zoom call with myself, and we'll go through what it is your situation looks like, what it is our firm has to kind of offer you as far as financial planning goes, and really making sure that we're a good fit to be the team to help, lead you, what we say, to and through retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call for Regary Financial. You can set up a time to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation at all. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call to have that conversation. Now it can be via Zoom, some form of technology, or maybe you might want to come into one of the convenient offices. They'll make you feel right at home, and it's still a free conversation, no obligation at all. Hemet and Redlands, that's where Regary Financial is, a couple of convenient offices. But again, the number to call to get in touch with Logan Sadler is 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat, and the beat will go on in just a moment. When Logan and I come back, Logan's going to answer some questions from some of our listeners. That is coming up next on the Financial Beat.
When it's used in a soundtrack, music can help highlight and influence the emotion of a movie scene. If the soundtrack isn't just right, it could distract from the scene or undercut a dramatic moment. Just imagine if this was playing during a Rocky Balboa training montage. Or what if this was the music playing during every shark attack in Jaws? Those classic movie moments probably wouldn't be so classic if the music wasn't right. Just like a movie needs the right soundtrack, your retirement needs the right financial plan to make it work. Your financial advisor can help orchestrate a financial plan that will support your retirement lifestyle so that your retirement soundtrack will sound like this.
Call Regary Financial at 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526 for a complimentary financial review. 888-823-PLAN.
This is the Financial Beat.
We are back now with more of the Financial Beat. I'm Ryan Stutz along with Logan Sadler. And Logan, as I've mentioned before today, worked with 3 different generations of client families at Regary. And the great thing about Regary Financial is that they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists, all the folks who have anything to do with your financial life. That means that Regary can offer you well-rounded guidance in all things financial, and they take a comprehensive approach. That is something that a lot of financial folks out there just don't do. If you'd like to get in touch and you'd like to sit down and talk with Logan Sadler, here's a number to call. Write it down if you haven't already, 888-823-PLAN. Put it in your phone, or better yet, go ahead and call right now, 888-823-PLAN. Leave your name and your phone number if you're calling during the show, and you'll get a call back first part of the week from the good folks at Regary. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Let's go to the mailbag, our request line, whatever you want to call it, because questions come in a variety of ways. First question today, Logan, comes from Chris in Marietta. Chris says, I max out my 401k every year, and I'm told that I make too much money to contribute to a Roth IRA, but I still want to save more for retirement than just the 401k contribution. Where am I supposed to put that money?
Yeah, that's a Great question, Chris. I appreciate you writing in on that one. And there is some options out there, right? I think you've done a good job, obviously, of maxing the 401k out and putting money away. And as far as your Roth contribution amount, you're probably correct. I'd have to see how much your income is and things like that to verify. But there is income limits on Roth. So there is a little bit of a wiggle room around this, though. There's no straight way to do it, right? Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to bite the bullet a little bit to sacrifice. However, there is the thing called a backdoor Roth, right? Now, what that means essentially is you can contribute money. There's a few more moving steps to this, but essentially you could put money into a traditional IRA. And if you're over the income limits and already maximizing, you're not going to get to deduct any of that. So you would put money into the traditional IRA, and then you could do a Roth conversion to backdoor that into a Roth. So you'd have to then pay the taxes on however much you put in there to get it over to the Roth. The best part about it is for some people, depending on your age and your income and things like that, this can be a great way to put money into a Roth IRA, or at least get some money in there to help that grow. And again, the whole point of Roth IRAs is to let it grow tax-free. So that is one scenario. For some people, if that's too many moving parts or if it's not a good fit, there also is traditional non-qualified brokerage accounts where you could basically open a brokerage account and it's not a retirement account. However, it could be used as a retirement vehicle, and it actually has quite a bit of tax advantages to it, especially if done correctly. And there's no income limits or anything like that, so you could put a lot of money in there per month or per year if you needed to, and it also leaves a little bit more flexibility. So I would say those are two of the answers I would give you to research on, or give us a call, and I'd be happy to further dive in and see if any of those make sense for yourself.
Again, that number to call, Chris, is 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today, if you would. Good question today. Vince says, I'm thinking about having my mom sign her house over to me so that we won't be forced to sell it if she has to go into a nursing home. Is this a good strategy?
Great question, Vince. So this is one thing that there's going to be a lot of pieces to unpack here, right? The thing is, there's different look-back provisions and things like that you want to be very careful for. Meaning, if you're giving away assets, there's some provisions where they can look back maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, just depending on states and things like that. But I would say it might not be the best thing to do right offhand, right? Obviously, you want to talk with a qualified financial advisor or attorney in this situation, specifically on your situation. But some of the reasons why I probably would recommend to take a deeper look into it is because you would be getting rid of the stepped up value of that home, right? So if mom decided to sell that home right now, she'd have her own tax situation essentially. But if mom passed away and left that house to you, you would inherit her stepped up value. So if it was, let's say the house is, she bought it for $200,000 and now it's worth $400,000 and she passes away, you would inherit it at that $400,000, right? So you'd get that $200,000 in gain completely tax-free, right? If done correctly. The problem when you start signing things over and taking things out of people's names is it could affect that stepped up value process. And so it could really maybe implement some more taxes down the road that may or may not be worth it depending on your situation. So definitely I would want to talk further on that and see the reasons why you're doing that. And then we could loop in the qualified attorneys and things like that to see if that makes the most sense, because you really want to make sure you're looking at that correctly, especially if that house, if mom's been there a while, the value of that home, the cost basis could be very, very low compared to what it might be worth today. So I would definitely hesitate in making sure you're talking to the qualified professionals about your situation specifically, because it could be a good thing or it could really, cause some other implications you might not have been aware of.
Vince, I would certainly recommend that you call Logan's office and have a conversation with him about all of this before you make any big decisions as far as this is concerned. Next question here is from Chip in Hemet. And Chip says, if interest rates start to go up over the next couple of years, what kind of effect, if any, should I expect that to have on my portfolio? Well, they've already gone up some.
Yeah, they've gone up. And like you said, if they start to go up more over the next, decade or so or a couple of years, there's going to be some effects, right? I mean, there's positive effects and negative effects, right? So things like CDs or treasuries or certain things like that, right? They might be paying very well, right? Like CDs and things like that right now, you can probably get between 4 to 5%, just depending on what banks you're looking at. And so that's great for a lot of people. And so if rates went up, you probably could expect that those would probably continue to rise, those in treasuries, things like that. But the downside of that is you look, if you're borrowing money, like buying a house and things like that, well, rates would be higher, which when you're borrowing money, higher rates are bad, right? So that would cause that. as well as traditionally when interest rates are experiencing high times or a volatility in the interest rate market, could also cause volatility on the housing market, could also cause volatility on potentially the stock market and bond market. So it's super important to understand that that is a risk, or that is a component that contributes to certain volatilities, right? Again, it could affect pretty much every sector positively or negatively. So just kind of seeing how you're diversified and shielding yourself from rising interest rates and potentially lowering interest rates, right? So making sure you have those two bases covered. But that's just kind of a general overview of what could potentially happen with your portfolio, just depending on how you're invested.
Okay, Chip, 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call to talk with Logan more about this. Won't cost you anything. Vivian is in Riverside, and Vivian says, I'm single and I don't have any kids to take care of me when I'm older. So should I definitely buy long-term care insurance?
Yeah, great question. One of the things about that is, long-term care could definitely be one of those things. A lot of people say, well, I'll just live with my kids, right? That's my long-term care insurance. I, again, would hesitate and say that's probably not the best plan either, right? Most people don't want our kids seeing us in that phase or having to be the one to execute some of the things during that. But even if you're single, like you're saying, and you don't have any kids, I would definitely say, long-term care insurance might make a lot of sense. Or understanding how your portfolio is structured, what assets you have, because sometimes you could self-fund, right? If we have enough money or enough resources, you could use your own money to fund some type of care policy or some type of care, needs. But I think sometimes having that long-term care policy does provide us some leverage where typically it's hard to get the leverage you would get from insurance, right? We all can probably agree on that. Car insurance, it's the same thing. Life insurance, same thing. And long-term care insurance is typically the same thing as well, where the dollars you put into it, they typically are maximized for that specific benefit, right? So it could be a good thing to look at. One thing we want to look at is age, health, and things like that, and see what you'd qualify for and making sure it makes sense. If it does, then looking at what the right policy might be. But first off, just kind of seeing your overall situation and seeing how you're structured to decide if it's something you really needed or not. But I would definitely recommend, above anything, having a plan put in place for if you did need long-term care, what would the order of operations be?
Next, we have a question from Tony in Idlewild. And Tony says, Logan, I want to leave money to both of my sons when I die, and I have 2 rental properties that I want them to split evenly. Do I need a will, a trust, or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll give you my little disclaimer here, right? I'm not a trust attorney, and I'd highly recommend you speak with a professional on this one. But from the sounds of it, you definitely probably would want to lean towards and get some more information on the trust, because inside of the trust, you could typically put those houses in the name of the trust and have those transferred to whoever it is you would like them to go to, and also put the percentages and things like that on there. But I think trust can be a great way, if done correctly, and by using a qualified professional, you could really help navigate and help, really dictate where you want your assets to go, and typically, if done correctly, very tax efficiently too, Tony. So give us a call. As Ron always says on this show, I'm not just a financial advisor that just sits here and does investments. We also work with a group of financial professionals and industry professionals that work in their respective areas. So I work with CPAs, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, as well as trust attorneys that can help navigate that situation with you. I'd be happy to send you over to.
All right. Thanks again for the question, Tony. And we got one more question today, Logan. Ronnie has a question, and Ronnie is in San Bernardino. Ronnie says, I've been told that I don't have enough of an emergency fund in the bank. What's more important, building that up or making sure that I'm maxing out my 401k, as I'm only 5 years away from retirement?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to look at this, right, Ronnie? I would say I would definitely look at getting the proper emergency fund, right? Because that's probably going to be easier for you to do while you're working than when you're not working. The reason why is you probably are going to make more money now, or at least have the opportunity to have overtime and things like that, where you might be able to definitely get some money saved. I would highly recommend the emergency fund of at least 6 months. So that means if something happened, you could pay all your bills and expenses for at least 6 months. Then I would very, very heavily lean towards starting to push as much as you can, so that you're maxing your retirement out, your 401k in this matter. Because the problem is, Ronnie, if something did happen to you right now or in 5 years, either way, you would probably still need an emergency fund, right? I think you're at a good spot where it probably wouldn't take you a whole lot of time to accumulate an emergency fund to at least get 6 months and things like that put away. And then from there, I would just start snowballing and hammering out towards that 401k, because it'd probably be harder for you in retirement to accumulate an emergency fund than it would be probably right now. So give me a call if you have questions on that. There's obviously some other considerations in there, but I would say that would probably be what I would do first, is get that emergency fund funded and then move over and start hammering out towards that 401k.
Got so many things to think about, and we really appreciate the good questions that come in for this week's show. There are lots of others in the on-deck circle that we'll get to on future shows here, but Logan Sadler always willing to answer your questions. Get those questions to, I guess you can send them to him via email, or one of the other ways that folks can get them into you.
Yeah, you can go over to the YouTube channel and leave comments and things like that on the channel at The Financial Beat. And you could also go over to thefinancialbeat.com and leave some stuff on there as well. So there's plenty of ways to get a hold of us and let us know some good ways to send out some questions so we can get those answered for you, either here on the channel, either here on the radio show or over there on the YouTube channel.
You've been listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and one more time, I'm going to put that number out there, 888-823-PLAN. It is so important to call that number because that begins the relationship. And this thing is all about relationships. Logan wants to get to know you and find out how he might be able to help you get to and through retirement. And if you'd like to get to know him, then all you got to do to arrange a conversation that's free, and there's no obligation involved. It's simply a service that Logan Sadler offers to everybody who listens to this show. The number to call is 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526, 888-823-PLAN. That number goes to Regary Financial. You can leave your name and your phone number. You will get a call back, and then you can sit down and have a conversation with Logan. It's just that easy. Thanks for listening to the Financial Beat today, getting to and through retirement without having to lie awake at night, tossing and turning, worried about outliving your money. Logan Sadler can help make sure you avoid that situation. Hey, Logan, it's been fun hanging out with you, and let's look forward to having another great show next week.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. Definitely had a blast talking with you, and hopefully the listeners got a laugh and some information along the way, and we'll be back here again next week with another episode.
See you next time on the next edition of the Financial Beat, and the beat will go on.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.